In the eyes of people all over the world, the nation of China conjures up images of the Great Wall and the Qin Dynasty terracotta warriors, wonders of the country's ancient past. However, centuries ago, it was the sight of porcelain that made people in the Mediterranean exclaim, "China." In their eyes, glittering and translucent porcelain was the very image of the mysterious Orient. In the city of Xi'an stands an army that never speaks. This huge formation of life-size terracotta pottery figures was created around 200 BC, even before the birth of Christ. They are known as the eighth wonder of the world. Not far from where the terracotta warriors were found lay the ruins of a village from the ancient Banpo civilization. At the ruins, the discovery of several ancient pottery basins once shocked the whole world, as they are estimated to be at least 5,000 years old. They were created by the Neolithic Yangshao culture. Chinese people created clay pots in various shapes and colors, often with fish patterns. Early Chinese potters found by chance that plant ashes, when put on unfinished pots, became beautiful and crystalline when fired. Generations of experimentation led to the discovery in around 100 AD of the secret formula for this crystallization. That in turn led to creation of the earliest porcelain in the world, qingce or celadon ware. How can one tell pottery from porcelain? When hit slightly, porcelain produces the clear sound. The surface of porcelain is waterproof. Unfinished porcelain is pure white with a smooth, refined texture. The differences in porcelain and clay come from different compositions. Pottery and porcelain are created in high-temperature kilns, making them sturdy and durable. Even after being buried for thousands of years, they can be found intact, allowing us to learn their origins. Although evidence of early forms of pottery have also been found from other ancient civilizations, such as ancient Egypt and India, the first pottery wares seen there are believed to have come from China. The West Lake in Hangzhou, Zhejiang Province, is noted for its picturesque landscape and long history and rich culture. Many legendary stories took place in areas around the West Lake. Here, 1,000 years ago, a group of unknown Chinese craftsmen started the history of pottery and porcelain. During the Eastern Han and Tang dynasties, in the birthplace of celadon porcelain, craftsmen produced works with a glaze as beautiful as Shi, one of the great beauties in Chinese history. This Yueyao celadon boasted beautiful color and rich luster, just like jade or ice. These light yellow celadon wares were made especially for the Tang dynasty royal court, where they caused a sensation. Another type of white porcelain created in the Tang dynasty, which looks velvety and snowy, was manufactured in the Xingyao kiln in Hebei province. The Han and Tang dynasties were two of the most prosperous and powerful feudal dynasties in Chinese history. Their cultures contributed greatly to world civilizations. Pottery and Portland, to some degree, embody China's civilization of that era, and were highly valued all over the world. Tangsan Cai, or tricolored glazed pottery of the Tang dynasty, originated during the reign of Emperor Gaozong. Tangsan Cai was marked by beautiful colors and well-crafted, elegant shapes. In fact, more than 3 colors appear in Tangsan Cai pottery. Its name comes from Chinese tradition. in which the numbers 3, 6, and 9 mean many. Not long after the creation of pottery and porcelain, it was introduced through the old Silk Road to every corner of the world. The Silk Road started in Chang'an, the capital of the Han and Tang dynasties, and ran west through the Yunmen Pass in Dunhuang, Gansu Province. This ancient trade route, crossing the Gobi Desert, continued west in two parallel directions. After going through the mountains and grasslands of Asia Minor, the Silk Road reached the Greek peninsula. Through this road, many people got to see Chinese pottery and porcelain. Arabian and Persian businessmen traveled east and west along this route. Their trading played an important part in promoting cultural exchange between the East and West. They not only brought Chinaware and silk from China to the West, but also introduced Chinese culture and advanced technologies to Western Asia and Europe. Even today, the Silk Road draws many travelers, Chinese and foreign, to see the ancient sites or study its history. Pottery and porcelain making technology matured in China around the year 1000 AD, when potters could distinguish subtle differences in various clays and could fine-tune their furnaces. In the Song dynasty, pottery and porcelain workshops had clear divisions of labor, and the manufacturing process took hundreds of steps. Mass production hit pottery and porcelain making in China. Song dynasty porcelain carried on the Tang dynasty tradition of Qingce celadon and Baice white porcelain. At that time, porcelain kilns could be found everywhere in China. The five most prominent kilns were the Guanyao, Geyao, Junyao, Ruyao, and Dingyao kilns. Porcelain collectors worldwide are proud of having porcelain from these kilns. A Song dynasty government-run kiln has been found near the West Lake in Zhejiang Province. It was called the Longyao Kiln and was built in a hill where the wind blowing across the slope of the hill could be taken in to intensify draft of the kiln, and the craftsmen could watch what was happening through small holes at the back. This guanyao is of typical Longyao style. Celadon wares from Guanyao kilns had a solemn style similar to the bronze wares of China's Shang and Zhou dynasties. But Celadon wares from the Ruyao kilns are more poetic in terms of their glazes. This resembles the shape of a magnolia flower, with a smooth glazed surface that feels like touching jade. The Dingyao kiln in Dingzhou of Hebei province followed the Tang dynasty tradition of making white porcelain. These pieces were pure white with glassy surfaces. The main colors of Geyao kiln porcelains were elegant steel gray and cream. Junyao kiln celadon wares were noted for a unique variety of glazed colors. The Yaozhou kilns in Shanxi province, typical northern-style kilns, are not as famous as those mentioned earlier, but engraved Yaozhou celadon wares are gorgeous. Coal was used to fire these kilns as early as in the Song dynasty. Yaozhou celadon wares are usually decorated with engraved or cut designs. Their strong lines represent the best craftsmanship of their time. Ceramicists at the Yaozhou kiln today still know those ancient skills and carry on the ancient artistic style. For a long time, Chinese pottery and porcelain were unrivaled in the world, but the Silk Road, due to its long distance and environmental changes, became more and more difficult to travel. So merchants began to look to the sea as an alternative for cultural exchange and foreign trade. From the late 13th to early 15th centuries, Quanzhou Port in Fujian Province was the largest port for foreign trade in the east. This is the wreck of a Song Dynasty merchant ship found in Quanzhou. Judged by this model, Song shipbuilders were very skilled, and Chinese ships were capable of sailing across oceans. Today in Quanzhou stands a mosque built in the northern Song Dynasty, proving exchange between the Middle East and Persia and ancient China. Some foreign people died and were buried in China. During the Song and Yuan dynasties, there were two sea routes for exporting pottery and porcelain. One started from ports in today's Fujian and Zhejiang provinces, hit Korea, and then headed to Japan. The other one ran through Southeast Asia and went further west, along the Indian Peninsula to the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and then Egypt and other African nations. Thanks to the booming marine trade, Quanzhou became the key port for exporting products from the Longchuan kiln in neighboring Zhejiang province. The products were shipped from Quanzhou port to every market in the world. The Longchuan celadon at that time was world famous. Its beauty inspired the French to call it celadon, after the name of a shepherd girl in a French folk tale. Sea trade made Quanzhou prosperous, and the nearby small town of Dehua also became a base for making porcelain for export. Dehua white porcelain impressed Europeans very much. Tales say they tried to copy the semi-transparent porcelain, but always failed, its techniques remaining secret until revealed from China a long time later. Dehua porcelain has a long history. At first, people used Longyao-style kilns to make porcelain.
这种就是属于支垫，支垫呢是用来调节山坡高低不平的这种自然这个条件啊。那像这里呢，这个你看这个支垫呢比较高一点，这个比较矮一点。它的匣脖呢大小匣脖都是这样子套啊，套在这里，那一个一个叠上去。
Later, the staircase kiln was invented. It kept a stable temperature better than the Longyao kiln and was easier to control, leading to a major improvement in production. A naval expedition led by the royal eunuch Zheng He of the Ming Dynasty to Western Asia and the Middle East opened China's eyes to the world and vice versa. In Chuanzhou, a 500-year-old stone stela records the rituals Zheng He conducted before starting the expedition. In some countries where Zheng once set foot, Longchuan celadon and Duhua white porcelain from that era have been found, along with Qinghua or blue and white porcelain from Jingdezhen, Jiangxi province in inland China. This white and blue porcelain is what is famously known as Ming porcelain, as in Ming vases. The glaze of Qinghua porcelain is cobalt oxide, which has a stable coloring effect. Designs and patterns were engraved on the rough cast and then coated with a hard transparent glaze that is very durable. Therefore, blue and white glazed pieces excavated after hundreds of years can still look new. Qinghua was a significant step forward in the history of porcelain making. Craftsmen from Jingdezhen made improvements on the Longyao kiln of the Song dynasty, creating the Huluyao or gourd kiln. It made efficient use of fire and led to high productivity. Today, there are many small porcelain workshops along the ruins of the Ming Dynasty kilns, which still use the gourd kiln. In the Ming Dynasty, craftsmen in Jingdezhen made breakthroughs in porcelain creation with underglaze red, tricolored glaze, and pentacolored glaze. Museums in Nanjing and Yangzhou, Jiangsu province, are home to precious underglaze red porcelain pieces made in Jingdezhen during the Ming Dynasty. It was very difficult to produce underglaze red chinaware, which explains why such pieces are rare and expensive today. Jingdezhen also produced pentacolored glazed porcelain and flange glazed porcelain. The outstanding workmanship of ceramicists in Jingdezhen helped shift China's porcelain production center from Zhejiang to Jiangxi, particularly to Jingdezhen. Massive market demand at home and abroad turned Jingdezhen into the nation's major porcelain base and improved craftsmanship. Jingdezhen was eventually called the capital of Chinaware. Centuries of innovation have allowed for the rise of mass production of porcelain in a myriad of styles in Jingdezhen. The precious, beautiful Chinaware created by brilliant ancient Chinese has an important place in the history of world art, and it also has had a profound impact on the world's civilization. Porcelain changed the way people live. Archaeologists have found pieces of Chinese porcelain in ancient ruins around the world, attesting to the spread of ancient China's civilization. In 1643, the Sun King, Louis XIV, ruler of France for 72 years, was on the throne. In January 1686, at age 48, he secretly married a woman 13 years his senior. Both were lovers of Chinese art and commissioned a merchant to order Chinese porcelain engraved with their images. This piece depicts them dancing in traditional Chinese clothes. There is no doubt that ancient Chinese potters and ceramicists were highly innovative and creative. The relevant question is, what is the home of pottery and porcelain like today? Dehua is a small hillside city. Porcelain for export was made here in the Ming and Qing dynasties. It was one of the most famous Chinaware production bases in China. In Dehua, children often play with clay just like master ceramicists. He Chaozong was a master ceramicist from Dehua in the Ming Dynasty. He created ivory white porcelain treasured by overseas collectors. He had a strong influence upon later generations of ceramicists in Dehua. The refined texture of Dehua ivory white porcelain comes from kaolin clay, which is very pure and easy to find in Dehua. Porcelain figures made of this kind of clay feel somewhat like human skin. This piece is unglazed Chinaware. The Dehua kiln can produce works that have textures like different clothes. In Dehua, making each piece of porcelain takes more than 100 steps. The younger generation of craftsmen has not only carried on the tradition, but also expanded the range of themes. They create bold impressions of modern life rather than traditional religious themes. These porcelain works represent the pinnacle of traditional skills. Porcelain craftsman Su Yufeng is noted for his creativity. He has made breakthroughs in using simple, elegant modeling. He uses the natural quality of porcelain clay to churn out these wonderful artworks. Despite undergoing centuries of great changes, Dehua porcelain has kept hold of its charm. Sichuan in Guangdong Province is home to striking architecture. Pottery and porcelain figures of flowers and birds can be found in roofs and eaves, a clear reminder that you are in the home of famed Sichuan porcelain figurines. Today, most masters of porcelain figurines work in the Sichuan Fine Chinaware Factory. They are outstanding craftsmen. Among them, Liu Zemian is good at engraving eyes and hand gestures. Huang Songjian has almost unrivaled skills in sculpting porcelain figurines. He also knows how to use traditional tools and techniques to pinch figurines. His works are full of life. Even their clothes and decorative patterns are well done with dramatic, beautiful visual effects. Mei Wending is famous for integrating traditional Chinese porcelain skills with contemporary tastes. He adds Chinese calligraphy to his modern engravings, giving them greater cultural significance. In the factory, talented younger craftsmen are on the rise. Yang Qingkun borrows from traditional landscape painting skills in his porcelain art. His works are somewhere between landscape paintings and relief sculptures. China, as the home of pottery and porcelain, has a lot of splendid porcelain making techniques which are widely used in porcelain factories all over. The southern Chinese city of Yixing is renowned for its landscape and beautiful pottery products. Yixing's pottery clay is zisha, purplish brown clay rare elsewhere. Yixing pottery products come in a great variety. Actually, zisha is not clay, but a kind of mineral deposit. When first extracted, it is hard as rock, but after months of exposure, it can be ground into zisha clay. A zisha pottery teapot is porous to air. If you use it to make tea, you will find a lingering tea fragrance that does not quickly go away. For that quality, zisha pottery is the favorite of Chinese intellectuals and has an important place in China's tea culture. In the history of Chinese porcelain and pottery, on the works of Song Dynasty celadon and white porcelain from the five major kilns, and on Qing Dynasty blue and white chinaware, no creator's inscriptions have ever been found. But zisha pottery carries the name of its creators, giving them centuries of fame, such as for immortal masters Gong Chun and Shi Dabin. Zisha pottery has a strong character of its own. Because zisha pottery is closely associated with Chinese tea culture, many Chinese men of letters also designed and made zisha pottery. To put it simply, many zisha pottery masters are also well-educated masters of taste. Take zisha master Lu Yaochen, for example. He is considered a man of taste by his friends, who often join him to talk about tea culture and art. Lu is a local opera buff and he sings pretty well. Lu is called the magic master of zisha pottery by collectors. His zisha pottery works cover an impressive range of shapes and styles and are highly valued by collectors. This courtyard in Yixing is very popular. Beside the path to the courtyard are some old stone rollers. They were used to grind zesha clay. They were abandoned but are now part of a collection of a pottery fan who uses them as a sign to his house, the walls to which are built from discarded pottery boxes.
这个墙啊，我们小时候呢，家里没有钱，也能买砖来砌墙。那个荷包烧柴火的荷包坏了以后呢，那个就把它接起来。我们小时候做围墙呢，就用这种荷包。那现在呢，就是我们又把它做一种经典，那个把人家原来破的那个围墙买过来以后呢，就是我自己烧了那个围墙。
Entering his courtyard, one finds a museum of pottery and porcelain history. This is Qi Xiutang. He is not only a collector, but also a designer and creator of zesha pottery. He is good at making vivid figurines that are full of life. Qi's art is reminiscent of the masterworks of the classic garden designer Shu Liutang. In creating zesha pottery products, women artists have developed their own styles. Wang Yanxian's zesha designs have a feminine beauty. As the old saying goes, small tricks do not deserve mention. But zesha pottery master Gu Xiaopei loves the small tricks of depicting crickets on zesha pottery works. He works hard on his crickets. He gives zesha teapots a wild flavor. Sipping tea, appreciating teapots, and cricket fighting were traditional pastimes of China's literati. The Chinese tradition of handmade pottery and porcelain has a very long history that has been constantly enriched and renewed. That may explain the everlasting charm of Chinese porcelain and pottery. Every zesha work reflects the taste and cultural background of its creator. Zesha pottery masters of today in Yixing have their own unique styles equal to those of their predecessors. The world of zesha pottery art is full of excitement. Porcelain and pottery are not only works of art, but also useful in daily life. Tableware, vases, and toilets are examples of commonly seen porcelain and pottery items. Great tableware adds to the flavor of delicious food. Today, porcelain and pottery for daily use are mass produced. The tunnel kilns used are much larger than the Longyao kilns of ancient China. Some use clean burning, energy saving natural gas. Computers are used to control kiln temperatures. Refined, delicate porcelain and pottery, formerly only accessible to the rich, are now mass produced in factories in China, making them obtainable for common Chinese families. Tangshan, Hebei Province, is one of China's modern production bases of porcelain and pottery. Several factories specialize in producing top quality Chinaware for export, each with its own formula. They produce good quality Chinaware in assembly lines and tunnel kilns. This porcelain brand has a smooth texture with colorful, lustrous glazes. These pieces are sold in Japan, South Korea, North America, and Europe. Tableware of this brand name was used by people attending the 2000 Sydney Olympic Games. Porcelain and pottery are more widely used than ever in modern life, such as for toilets and bathtubs. The factory employs a CAD, computer-aided design system, to develop and improve its products, which are sold in the North American and European markets. Modern technologies have made great advances in porcelain and pottery manufacturing and apply to a wide range of human activities, such as the use of high-temperature ceramics on spacecraft. In the history of Chinese pottery and ceramics, countless master craftsmen left behind numerous precious porcelain and pottery artworks. But traditional skills are mainly handed down by example, which can result in the loss of those skills over time. To avoid such loss, the Jingdezhen Academy of Pottery and Porcelain has been founded in Jingdezhen, the capital of Chinaware. The Academy offers new ways of fostering qualified craftsmen for the pottery and porcelain industry with an open, modern education system. The Academy is the only one of its kind in China to combine theoretical studies with practical production management instruction.
我们学校对吧呢，充分利用基地办校的优势，这也就是讲利用中国的陶瓷，利用景德镇的瓷都这个地位，把我们学校办着自己的特色。
Under teachers' guidance, students can give full play to their own creativity and experiment with different areas of pottery and porcelain making. The Academy is a complete platform for artist development. Every generation of artists has its heyday. So, even after 1,000 years of glory, China's pottery and porcelain art faces an even more promising future.